Hello and welcome to the Football Malarkey podcast. I am Simon Doyle. I am back for another Premier League review slash preview. Lots of Premier League games in the last week. There was 2 game weeks. There's another 2 game weeks this week. So a lot of Premier League football. By the end of this weekend, all teams will have played 4 Premier League games in the space of 11 to 12 days. So a lot of football being played. And a lot of interesting games to look back on. We've had the introduction of Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea, taking over from Frank Lampard, and it's been very intriguing to see how he set Chelsea up in his first couple of games. That's the first thing I'm going to get into today. So Chelsea beat Burnley 2-0 on the weekend, having previously drawn 0-0 in Tuchel's first game at home to Wolves. I watched the whole Wolves game. I didn't get to see the Burnley game, but I do know that he went with the same formation in the Burnley game as he did with the Wolves game. I was intrigued during the Wolves game at seeing him immediately go to a 3 at the back system. But what was more intriguing about it was how the team essentially set up in a 3-2-2-3, which is essentially the old-fashioned WM system that teams used to use for decades, from approximately the 1930s to the 1970s. I could be wrong on those dates. It might have been a bit after the 1930s that it came in, but rest assured, in the 50s, 60s, and at least the start of the 70s, most teams would play in what was known as the WM formation. And it's where a lot of the terminology that we still use today for positions in football, as well as the numbers that we typically associate with different positions, this is where they come from. This largely comes from the old WM. So I'm going to use some visuals, if you can see this here. So you can see here there's a 3-2-2-3, and if you see the dotted lines, they roughly make up an M down here and a W up here, which is what makes it known as the WM. Now this is obviously what Chelsea looked like when they had the ball. Defensively, the wing backs would drop back, the 2 more attacking midfielders would kind of drop a little to the side of these 2 midfield players to make it more of a 5-4-1 defensively. But what they used to have back in the good old days, you could say, was 3 full backs. So these 2 were full backs. This was typically the number 4, I'm going to say. These 2 were known as half backs, which eventually, when one of them dropped back, became known as centre halves, which is what we call them now. Because these were called full backs, because they were the ones, these were full backs, these were half backs, because these guys were full all the way back, and these 2 were halfway back. This is how we got the term full back for these guys. And then, like I said, halfbacks became centre halves when one of them dropped back, and then you had a holding midfielder staying here. These 2 were known as inside forwards. This was a striker, and these were your wingers. Now in Chelsea's case under Tuchel, these are obviously the wing backs. Ben Chilwell over here in the Wolves game, and Marcus Alonso came in for the Burnley game. Callum Hudson-Odoi was here for the Wolves game, and I think Reece James came back in for the Burnley game. So he's obviously giving lots of different players a chance to impress, give everyone their chance under the new manager to see if they can fit into the system. I mentioned numbers. This is where, so we always consider 2 and 3 to be 2 the right back, 3 the left back. So it would have went 2 and 3 back here, number 4 in here, 5 and 6 up here, going from right to left, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, which is why we always consider the left winger 11, the right winger 7, this guy number 9, and then 8 and 10, which are nowadays considered midfield positions, but the number 10 is seen as the attacking midfield player. The number 10, it's called the number 10 role now, when you have one of your midfield three be basically play between the midfield and the striker. So that's where that comes from. Now, I talked about how high the wing backs were for Chelsea. That only works if they can constantly keep a team pressed back in their own half and maintain possession. I think they had 79%, I want to say, of the ball against Wolves. I think it was a similar number against Burnley on Sunday. And it's going to be very intriguing to see on Thursday when they come up against Jose Mourinho's Spurs, if they can maintain those numbers. Instinctively you'd think no, because Spurs are a better side, but Jose is never afraid to give the opposition the ball. And after their last couple of results, they might retreat to be even more negative than usual, than they usually are in these big games. So it's going to be very intriguing to see what happens in that game on Thursday. That will be the last game of the midweek games. It's the only game on Thursday. Everyone else is playing Tuesday or Wednesday. But it's a strong start under Tuchel for Chelsea. They have a win and a draw, 2 clean sheets. Tuchel is known for being a manager who was once described as something in between Klopp and Guardiola. He does very much value possession, and if he can dominate the ball with his team, he will. However, he's not afraid to play without the ball at times as well, and likes his teams to be very strong in transition, where the likeness to Klopp comes in. He wants an intense pressing side and a team that are very efficient technically and can obviously keep the ball for long periods and create chances by pinning the team back and having more of the ball. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do with this Chelsea team. He has very good personnel in there. However, he's also known for being a little... He's opinionated and can be quite prickly. Tuchel, he has definitely made some enemies at PSG and at Dortmund before that. So not typically with players, it's more likely to be with board members or people working in the scouting department or youth system. If they're not seeing eye to eye, he will almost certainly run into those problems at Chelsea at some stage, because every manager seems to. But it's going to be interesting to see how he handles the players. Typically, it seems the players do admire him. They do like working for him. He definitely is very modern with his tactics and his training methods, so players enjoy that. And he has a couple of players in that squad who he's managed before. He's obviously managed Thiago Silva last year and the year before, having been at PSG with him. And Christian Pulisic very much flourished under him at Dortmund. It was under Tuchel where he really came into the limelight and made his name, Pulisic. So they are two players who will, I think, most likely be glad to see him come in and help him implement his style of play. But no doubt there are going to be some casualties in terms of the playing staff, because Chelsea have a lot of big names there. They have a lot of people on big money and a lot of people who expect to play. So it's going to be his job from now until the end of the season to see who can fit in and who they can likely let go. I very much enjoyed seeing the use of Hakim Ziyech and Kai Havertz as the two more attacking midfield players. I do think they are roles that suit them both, but they're going to need to be adaptable as well to play in Tuchel's team, because it won't always be that straightforward. It was very interesting to see him go with the back three against Wolves of Rudiger, Thiago Silva and Cesar Azpilicueta, because they are the three oldest of the Chelsea centre-backs. Now, I think Kurt Zouma, I think he had an injury issue that kept him out for a couple of games. He is back now. And Christensen seems to have missed quite a few games through injury this season. So, and Fikayo Tomori has gone out to AC Milan. So, maybe these three just are what he has for now. And they're good players, all three of them. But I can't imagine that they are a trio that he can build his team around. They're going to come up on Thursday against Son Heung-min. Maybe it's likely Bergwijn will play for Spurs as well. Maybe Gareth Bale. It's going to be very interesting to see against that kind of pace and just quality overall. Whether that back three can be tested a little more, because they weren't properly tested against Wolves. Pedro Neto did a great job on his own and created for himself the best chance of the game and was unlucky to hit the crossbar, but beyond that didn't make a whole lot. And Burnley were never going to have the pace up front to really test that Chelsea back three either. So it's going to be interesting to see with Spurs. First of all, does Tuchel set up the same way? Does he go with that same back three? And if he does, can they handle Spurs forward players? So that's going to be intriguing to watch. Spurs, on the other hand, have just come off 2 losses in a row. They were the big game last midweek, also on Thursday, at home to Liverpool. Liverpool were in terrible form going into that game. Everyone thought, Spurs could really not put their season to bed, because the table's too tight for Liverpool to be written off even then, even if they had lost. But Liverpool were starting a very tough run of Premier League fixtures there, which started with Spurs. They then went to West Ham on the weekend. They've got Brighton at home this midweek, and then they've got Manchester City on the weekend, as well as, I believe, Everton and I want to say Aston Villa or Leicester. Anyway, they've got a couple more tough fixtures coming up after that Man City game as well. So all eyes were on Liverpool and Spurs last weekend, and Spurs really failed to turn up. Liverpool were much the better team. They looked very much back in form. I talked about how when they lost 3-2 to Manchester United in the FA Cup, Liverpool, that just because they had got those 2 goals in that game didn't necessarily suggest that they were back into any kind of goal scoring form. And the reason I gave for that was because United played an open game. Liverpool and United seemed to just open up and have a go at each other, which made for a more entertaining game, much more so than the league game they had played a week before. But it didn't fix Liverpool's problem of coming up against a team who was going to sit deep in a low block and just say, you have to beat us. United were more open in that game, and therefore it was always going to be a bit easier for Liverpool to create chances. But however, in the game against Spurs, they did come back into form of beating a team who were happier to sit deep. I was very surprised with the back three that Jose started with. There was no Toby Alderweireld. He started with Eric Dyer, Joe Rodon and Ben Davies in a back three, which was an interesting selection. I don't know why Alderweireld was left out, if it was just maybe because of pace, being wary of the pace of Mane and Salah perhaps, but either way it ultimately didn't work. Liverpool were back to getting the ball out wide to their fullbacks in high positions and throwing in dangerous crosses, and Spurs couldn't really handle it. They seemed they felt very much under pressure from Liverpool's attempted crosses and balls over the top. Mane really looked hungry for the ball and for goals, and he was getting passes over the top and getting down that left hand side where Joe Rodon was pretty easily for Liverpool, and that's what led to the opening goal, I believe. But they just really never looked comfortable. Jose went with the back three and had Serge Aurier right wing back and had Doherty a left wing back. Doherty's never played left wing back to my knowledge. He's known for being a very good right wing back at Wolves. He's been bought by Jose Mourinho, brought into Spurs, and it seems like Jose doesn't trust him. Even in their most previous game this Sunday, the loss to Brighton, he trusted Moussa Sissoko to start in right back instead of bringing Doherty in. Serge Aurier was out of the squad completely. I believe he walked off after at half time. He was subbed in the Liverpool game, and I believe he, according to reports, he walked out of the stadium and went home. So he obviously wasn't going to be involved for the next game, and Doherty still doesn't get a look in. So it was a strange decision. I've seen Jose make these decisions as a Manchester United fan. I've seen him make some strange decisions in big games to play certain players in certain positions that they haven't really played before. So this was another one of those instances where I just thought he was trying a bit too hard. Obviously he was thinking from a defensive standpoint, having Aurier and Doherty basically there just to try and shore up Salah and Mane, kind of double up on them at times. I thought Mane twisted Aurier inside out. Doherty did a better job with Salah, but ultimately their back three just wasn't strong enough to handle Liverpool's attack. Harry Kane went off at half time in that game and really took any bite out of Spurs that they had. Kane had set up Heung-min Son for a goal in the first few minutes of the game. It was ruled out for offside. But after that, after half time when Kane was gone, Son didn't look. He wasn't in the game at all. And it really is. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's a bit of a worrying sight for Spurs fans. I imagine that they don't seem to be anywhere the same without Kane. Now, any team that has Kane is going to suffer without him because he is that good a player, but the game plan is too heavily focused around himself and Son, essentially just doing the damage in attack. They've got some other good forwards there who are not really contributing goals wise. Bergwijn's been decent, but after that, I'm not sure Lamella's got a Premier League goal this year. Lucas Moura has not really been in good form. Gareth Bale is not in any kind of form. Vinicius looks very much a backup striker. He doesn't look like the level to get double figures in a Premier League season from what I've seen. And I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. But it's concerning for Spurs now with Kane out for what seems a few weeks. But Kane always does this. Every year he gets injuries that have him out for 3 to 4 weeks. He gets 1 or 2 a season. It always happens with Kane, so this can't be a surprise. I thought Gareth Bale was kind of brought in to be another senior forward player who would contribute in terms of goals and assists. Hasn't really worked out that way. Is that the fault of the coaching staff? Is it fitness issues, we obviously can't really know. But it doesn't look good for Spurs at the moment. And in this game against Chelsea, Tuchel's Chelsea, Jose's gonna have to come up with a serious game plan and get his players back on side very quick. Now, Jose is arguably still the master at picking holes in an opposition setup, but I think he's gonna need to be at his very best. I know I'm not bigging up Chelsea and saying that they're all of a sudden going to be amazing, but they're obviously got that bit of a new manager bounce. They've showed that in the last couple of games, the performances anyway. They've got that first win. They're not conceding goals, and I think they'll be dying to show what their real level is against Spurs, because they've struggled in a lot of the bigger games this year, Chelsea. So they know this is a big opportunity to get their name back in the conversation for top four. They're only 6 points behind Leicester, having played the same amount of games. But if a win here will really put them back in that frame. I think like West Ham are currently 5th. I do think they will drop out as good as they've been. So Chelsea will know that if they can get the edge on Spurs, they can start looking up at Leicester and really starting to think of giving Leicester a real fight for top four. So yeah, the loss particularly for Spurs to Brighton yesterday was particularly poor. Like Brighton played well and largely dominated. They made the better chances. They looked more likely to get a second and put it away as a comfortable 2-0 win than Spurs did look like equalising. So that has to be a worry for Spurs. They're just looking very devoid of ideas without Harry Kane. So yeah, that is the Thursday game coming up this week. Very much looking forward to that game. Moving on then to Manchester United, who continue their wobble, let's call it for now, drawing 0 all the way to Arsenal after losing 2-1 at home to Sheffield United last week in what was overall a pathetic performance from United. I said as a United fan, I've been particularly angry with some of these last couple of performances. There were some things that were good, but overall, it's a bit unacceptable given our home form, given the fact that Arsenal came and beat us at Old Trafford this season. We had the chance to get one back on them, and it really was a game. Both of these were games we should absolutely have been winning at the moment. So we play Southampton tomorrow at home, and we very much need to get back into winning ways. I call it a wobble because United had gone 13 games unbeaten. And like I was saying previously, in those 13 games, we'd won 10. We'd drawn 3, and those 3 draws were Leicester, Liverpool and Manchester City, literally the 3 teams closest to us in the table. So United were doing a good job of beating the teams they should and drawing to the teams around them, which obviously keeps them where they were, a point each. But obviously losing to the team bottom of the table with only 5 points and only 1 win in 20 games before coming to Old Trafford, or 19 maybe, before coming to Old Trafford, was unacceptable. And the manner of their goals was unacceptable. Problems we've conceded from set pieces a lot this season, which remains a big Achilles heel for us, even though David De Gea was fouled. But I'm still never impressed with his ability to defend from crosses, and I think teams are targeting him, and rightly so, because he is a weak spot for us in that sense. The rest of the defence didn't cover themselves in glory in that situation either, and there was nothing to blame De Gea on in the second goal. They were all at fault for what was abysmal defensive awareness and simple marking. I think Alex Telles had to take a lot of the blame for that second goal from what I saw. We also had a bad decision on the other end, a goal ruled out that should never have been, particularly considering they'd given the Sheffield United one. So for them to rule out the one where Harry Maguire is simply jumping up in the air to try and win the ball and brushes against the goalkeeper. I mean, if you're going to be that protective of goalkeepers, then where was the protection for David De Gea on the first one? That made no sense. Personally, yes, Sharp does push De Gea a bit, but I didn't think... Personally, I would have just kind of left it. I think goalkeepers are given too much protection anyway. Like you sneeze near them and it's a foul. It's quite ridiculous at times. So personally, I would rather have just let both goals stand. So I didn't have a huge problem with the Sheffield United goal being given, but since it was given, then ruling out the United goal for what was much less of a foul in anyone's book was just shocking refereeing overall. There's been a few bad refereeing situations that have happened in the Premier League of late. We had another one this weekend where Aston Villa beat Southampton 1-0, and Southampton should have had a penalty in the first half. For me, it's a clear handball by Matty Cash. I defended Matty Cash for the handball he conceded against Manchester City because I thought that was very harsh. This one was a blatant one, and it wasn't given. So, you want to believe that the saying that, decisions even out over a season is right, and it would look like Matty Cash has gotten one for him and one against in the last couple of games, but I think overall the standard of refereeing has just not been good, and for me it's gotten worse since VAR has come in, and I think a lot of referees are waiting for VAR to solve the situation. But the problem with VAR at the moment is that we're not really fixing issues. We're shifting the conversation, and I think Jamie Carragher said this almost a year ago. He said, we've just shifted the conversation from complaining about referees to complaining about VAR. It's not really clarifying enough situations. And there was another offside call. I believe it might have been the same game. I think, was it Danny Ings? Anyway, there was a player called offside, and where they draw the line is literally up to here on his arm, and if it had hit that part of his arm and gone in, they would have called a handball. So how that they're saying that being ahead of the defender means that he's offside is just absolutely preposterous. It's ridiculous. They're just deciding arbitrarily where to draw these lines when it comes to the offside decisions. For me, there isn't even proper depth perception on where they're drawing the VAR lines. Like, they're drawing it thinking that this is where the player's arm is or leg is, but really, if you were to look at it in a 3D, it looks like the line is way away from their body. It's not right in where their leg or arm, whatever they're trying to draw the line against, actually is. So for me, it's just an absolute farce seeing some of these goals disallowed. I've heard many people say it, and it's something I completely agree with. They should just mark by the feet. Just go by the player's feet. None of this, any part of the body which you can score from. No, just do it by where the feet are. If the attacker's feet are ahead of the last defender's, yes, offside. It makes it much easier to draw the lines. You don't need the depth perception as much because their feet are likely to be on the ground or just off it, if anything. So they need to change it to drawing the line where the feet are, because that's where the player is positioned ultimately. He isn't where his head is. His head can be leaning ahead. I don't really see how that gives them an advantage. If your feet are level with the defender, then that's where you are in the field. I really think that change needs to be made, because it's a farce seeing some of these goals disallowed. It really is. And the biggest problem for me, like I said, is just where they draw the lines from. It just seems depends on who's holding the mouse on the day, which is just quite ridiculous. When we're trying to judge what happens in a football match. They need to clarify some of the rules. We talked about the Manchester City goal against Aston Villa. Manchester City were also involved in something last midweek against West Brom, in which the players were at fault for stopping, but they're also confused because of the new rules. So for me, they need to clarify the rules 100%, go through every scenario that might happen. I can't believe they haven't done that already. Go through every scenario. Like they've come out now and said that goal against Villa for Manchester City wouldn't have counted now if it happens again. That happened with 10 minutes to go in that game. And Villa looked like they were set for a draw. It looked like one of those days for Manchester City where they just couldn't score. And then they've also come out and said that the decisions between Manchester United and Sheffield United that I've just been discussing were wrong. Both decisions. Which is just... It is just quite ridiculous. This is what VAR was supposed to be brought in for, and now some decisions are getting wrong, and you're just in hindsight after the game's done saying, oh yeah, that should have been the other way. Get it right at the time. This is literally what VAR was brought in for, so we don't have to have these stupid discussions and have to look back and think, if only that was given properly, this result might have been different, and then the table maybe looks different because of that. It really is I think an unacceptable standard of refereeing at the moment in the Premier League. It needs to be addressed very quick. But getting back to Manchester United, the Sheffield United game was poor. Refereeing decisions aside, we didn't really put them under enough pressure. We didn't create enough chances to really complain. We gave them two very soft goals, and you do that in the Premier League, you can't complain. For me, it was just a bit of a pathetic showing from the team in general. Some individuals in particular have been particularly bad. Our forwards are not in great form. Again, against Arsenal in the 0-0 draw, I thought United started very well. I thought the first 20-25 minutes United looked very strong. Arsenal came back into it before and after half time, and they looked strong, but didn't really create any big chances that they thought we should have scored there. Whereas United, when they were putting the pressure on, did create some very good chances. Marcus Rashford had one in the first half that he takes too long. If he just uses his left foot, he probably scores. He takes way too long. Fred had a very good shot saved by Leno, the goalkeeper. And Cavani had two, by Cavani standards, they were two absolute tap-ins, and he missed both. And even in what was overall a bit disappointing showing from United, because they never really took advantage and really put pressure on Arsenal when they looked weak, and towards the end of the game never seemed to have the serious urgency to say we need to score here. That left United fans being very angry and disappointed with the draw. At the end of the day, the game is about making better chances than your opposition, and we definitely did do that. I think if you give Cavani those two chances another 10 times, he probably scores them every time. Rashford as well could do much better with his, and if they do that, we walk away with a 1-0 maybe. Then you're looking at, okay, that was a decent away performance against the team in Arsenal who is back in a bit of form. you take it and you move on. Good win. So they're very fine margins, but at the end of the day, I think just the urgency from United wasn't there to really go for it and try kill off Arsenal. Anthony Martial again was extremely poor, not really contributing anything lately in his performances. He's given the ball away cheaply. He's not really getting any decent shots off. He seems hesitant to shoot. He's not creating anything in and around the box. He's lost that maturity that he had after lockdown when he was very good. That maturity seems to be gone out of his game, and now he's gone back to some bad habits on the pitch, and he needs to shake them off. And if he doesn't before the summer, I'm not sure United can keep relying on him. Actually, I'll be sure that we can't keep relying on him. He needs to pick up his form, and he needs to do it quick. Marcus Rashford wasn't great, but he's been our best attacker all season, so it's hard to keep demanding the same very high levels of performance from him in every single game, and we've such a tight schedule and nobody else is really picking up the slack for him. Cavani was very much at fault, like I said, for missing those chances. Bruno wasn't in form. I thought Pogba still played well again. He found it hard to really influence the game in the final third, but other than that, I thought he looked sharp. He is looking, I think he's looking the fittest he's been since he's been at United, and he is quite consistent over the 90 minutes, and long may that continue, because we're going to need him if we are going to get back into any kind of title charge. Pogba will need to be fit and need to be doing what he's doing right now. I thought our fullbacks were very impressive in that game, Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw. I think it was between either of them for man of the match, really. They both bombed up and down the wings. Wan-Bissaka got into the box a couple of times as well on the end of Shaw crosses, got his head to one, which he probably should have done much better with. That was actually quite a decent chance, and if that fell to one of our strikers, we'd be probably expecting them to score with that header. But he got up there, he defended his side very well, and he pressed extremely well. I think he won the ball 3 or 4 times in the Arsenal half. He was very effective at that, and it was a strong performance, the strongest performance I've seen from Wan-Bissaka this season. So hopefully he can keep that up for a little while, because we don't really have an alternative at right back. Brandon Williams can come in, but he's not as comfortable over there as he used to be, having been a left back for so long. So yeah, we're going to need Wan-Bissaka to do that again against Southampton tomorrow. I've no idea what to expect from the team, because he could go with any number of options. I'm quite certain Paul Pogba will start, and Bruno will start. I think he'll get Cavani in again, because I think he'll want him to brush those misses off, get those goals, get back into goal scoring form, and hopefully kick on from there. I think Mason Greenwood should probably start. I think he deserves to. He's been brighter in recent games, not near his best yet, but he's been brighter, so hopefully he can step up again, maybe bag himself a goal just to get back into that goal scoring form. He scored against Liverpool in the cup, but that was his only goal, to my recollection, in the last stretch of games. So yeah, it is a must needed win now, a must win for United at home to Southampton. The table is so tightly packed that not winning could, you can get dragged back in. I think if Liverpool and Leicester were both to win, we could find ourselves in fourth and looking over our shoulder at Chelsea or Spurs. So it is a must win for United. Southampton, on the other hand, they've lost 3 games in a row coming into this game. So after they beat Liverpool 1-0, they've gone on to lose 2-0 to Leicester, 3-1 to Arsenal, and 1-0 to Aston Villa on the weekend. Very controversially against Aston Villa, and probably undeservedly, but it is besides the fact they have lost 3 of their last games. So they're going to be coming into this game looking to arrest that slide. They're certainly a good enough team not to be losing 3 Premier League games in a row, even though Leicester, Arsenal and Villa are tough opposition. But these are typically in recent years the type of games I fear for United. We've not had the best home form. We're coming into this game in a bit of a, I don't want to say desperate situation, but we do really feel we need a win, and Southampton are too good a team at the moment to be losing 4 games in a row in the Premier League. So, but we have been much better at addressing these games this season, and we just have to go with the mentality that we don't care what Southampton are here for or what game they might lose. We have to just go in with a ruthless mentality and send them packing, send them home with a comfortable win. I do think in those games a trend I've noticed with Southampton is that they do seem fairly susceptible to the counter-attack. I think when I looked at Villa's chances that they created in the game on Sunday, they were largely from the counter-attack. Villa are quite a good counter-attacking team. Arsenal very much played on the counter-attack when they beat them 3-1 last week. And Leicester are largely a team built on counter-attacks this season as well. So that might work in United's favour. Because United are obviously very strong on the counter, probably the strongest team in the league on the counter-attack. So that might work in our favour, but Southampton are obviously going to know that too. Maybe they've addressed some of those issues. Like I said, they did actually play quite well against Villa and were very unlucky to lose, but hopefully they haven't, from United's point of view, they haven't corrected it too much yet, and the United can take advantage of that. So yeah, they come into this game probably, they're 11th right now. They've had a very good season so far. They're level on points with Leeds, so I don't think they're going to get dragged into any kind of danger or anything like that. But I did tip them to finish 7th this season. I think that's probably looking unlikely now, just because how strong Leicester have been and how strong West Ham look right now, although I do think West Ham will eventually drop off. But with Arsenal getting back into some form now and Chelsea under Tuchel starting to look strong, it's starting to look to me like Leicester are the only team that will break up that top 6 from the current picture. That could change. Villa have games in hand and they've been very, very good this year. But I think Southampton, they'll need to turn this form around quick if they're gonna even challenge for a Europa League place this season. I don't think they will now. I think they will finish right in mid-table, approximately 10th. But that's a good season for Southampton. They've flirted with relegation too much in recent times, and they've definitely impressed more this season with their performances. And like I was saying before, if Hasenhüttl can get the players in that he thinks they need, he is that good a manager and the system is working that well for them. I think that they could go on and be very effective next year, and who knows, maybe do what Villa or even Leicester are doing this season. I really don't think it's beyond their grasp. If it's a big if for Southampton to get all the players that they want. And who knows what their financial situation is at the moment. But there's a lot of potential there. There's a lot to look forward to for Southampton fans at the moment. I'm sure they're enjoying having this team and having Hasenhüttl in charge. They're a fun team to watch too. They're an enjoyable team. They play with a lot of energy and obviously like to play a lot in transition. And they're quite good in possession too. So they are a joy to watch. I do enjoy watching this Southampton team. But yeah, that is United and Southampton on Tuesday. That's tomorrow. A next game that's coming up on either Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't recall now, but Leeds are hosting Leicester at Elland Road, which is going to be a very big game. Last time these two met, Leeds host Everton, my mistake. Last time these two met, Leeds won at Goodison Park, so this is the reverse fixture at Elland Road. Leeds have just come off the back of beating Leicester away from home 3-1, just a few days after beating Newcastle away from home 3-1, which were two very big wins for Leeds to get back into winning form. They beat Newcastle 2-1, like I said, but they were more comfortable than that, I felt, throughout the game. I feel like 2-1 flattered Newcastle a little bit, but they didn't seem to take full advantage. And I noticed at the end of that game that a lot of Leeds players just kind of fell back on the pitch and they looked exhausted. And when I saw that, I thought, okay, that's it's a consequence of obviously Bielsa's very intense system, mixed with the fact that they don't rotate a lot, mixed with the fact that they're playing a lot of games at the moment, like every 3 days on average at the moment. So I feared for them going into this Leicester game. They lost 4-1 to Leicester in the reverse fixture, and I thought something similar might be on the cards. But it was actually Leicester who looked the more tired. Leicester took the lead and Leeds immediately equalised, and even from that first Leeds goal, essentially 3 players that run through about 5 or 6 Leicester players in that sequence of play. Leeds had the legs and were constantly running and moving the ball on one touch, and Leicester just couldn't keep up, and I felt that throughout the rest of the game, that they couldn't match Leeds physically. So I was surprised to see Leeds hit those heights again, those physical heights, just a few days after looking, strung out on the pitch after the Newcastle game, and Leicester looking so tired. It was quite a surprise. Leicester have lost some weird games this year. Their home form has been very patchy, and they lost to Leeds, like I said, this time, but they've also lost at home to Fulham. Everton went there and won 2-0. Like that, they've had weird results, particularly at home, Leicester, despite still having a very good season. Like they're currently on course, I think, for 76 points if they keep their average going at what it has been so far, which should be enough for top 4. But it's just interesting to see some of the games that they seem to lose. It doesn't make an awful lot of sense. It did look like they were missing Jamie Vardy against Leeds. Jose Perez came in, but obviously doesn't have that pace to get him behind, so Leeds weren't tested in that same way. But it was a huge win for Leeds. Patrick Bamford looked superb. He looks back in goal scoring form. He got that. Was it the second or the third Leeds goal? The second one, yeah. And he set up the third for Harrison. But it was a superb strike, that second goal. Brilliant strike with his left foot into the far top corner. And then looked incredibly quick and fit on the counter-attack for that, to set up that third goal for Harrison. He did that perfectly too when he was running at the goalkeeper, and he aligned himself in between the centre-back and the goalkeeper so that the centre-back couldn't get around him. And then just at the right time played it to Harrison, to his right, who had an empty net to slot it into. So he was very impressive, Patrick Bamford. They still, though, in this game and in the Newcastle game, neither of the 2 goals they conceded were from set pieces, but Leeds throughout both games still looked very susceptible. There was a few, sharp intakes of breath from the Leeds bench watching them defend some of the set pieces. It seems like their answer, like they're a relatively small team, Leeds, and they do man for man marking. That is the way Bielsa likes to set up. So even though it does create problems for them in terms of defending set pieces, the response in these 2 games, what I notice is that they seem to be incredibly intent on counter-attacking after an opposition corner or free kick. So they get numbers forward quick and they do it at an incredible pace, and that seems to be their way of countering. So they're basically trying to stop the opposition from sending so many people forward, because they want the opposition to think about the counter-attack and think about leaving more players back. That seems to be how they're approaching defending set pieces. So it's if someone just happens to get their head on something, then that becomes obviously ineffective. But I think they're trying to just put it in opposition's head that if you don't, we're going to counterattack very quickly, and it's going to be very hard to stop. And that seems to be how they're approaching their defensive set pieces, which is interesting, but also makes sense if you just don't have the personnel to defend set pieces very well. What can you do? What can you do to make the opposition think a bit more defensively, and maybe give yourself a bit more of a chance? So very intriguing to see, and that's just my observation. I could be wrong about that approach. Maybe it's just coincidental, but I did notice that they seem to be really focusing on their counter-attacking from just after opposition set pieces. So they host an Everton team who has not won in their last 3 games. Everton lost this weekend 2-0 at home to Newcastle, a team who hadn't won in 10. And really for Everton, they were talked up very highly at the start of the season. Obviously Carlo Ancelotti is a very good and experienced and well respected manager. They made some very good signings. Their first 11 looked very strong, and they were performing very well, and they still are performing well in some games. But I did say, I think I tweeted out at the start of the season that they look very impressive, but do they really have the squad to maintain a challenge for a Champions League spot? And I doubted that at the time, and I think that's proven to be true. James has only just come back in after a stint out through injury. Alan has missed some games. Andre Gomez missed some games. Richarlison missed some games, and they just don't have the squad to deal with those, with 1 or 2 of those players getting injured. If and when they have their strongest starting 11, they are strong, and they could be a match for pretty much any team in the league, but they just don't have the squad to maintain that form. And they're also not used to it. Keeping up that level of consistency requires a different level of mentality. And while Ancelotti is definitely a man who can instill that, it takes time. And I think he's brought in players like Alan and James to introduce that mentality, because James has won things with Real Madrid and with Porto. Alan has never won the league title, but has been in a Napoli team that consistently challenged for the league title for 3 seasons under Maurizio Sarri. So he's another player who knows what it takes to put in a serious run of form, to push at the top of the table. So it's going to be a test of the Everton board's will. Are they willing this summer to still put in more money and back the manager again and get the personnel he feels they need. Because if they do that and they keep everyone together, then I do think they could be a lot stronger next season. I do think that they could build on this season, understand where they went wrong, understand what they need to do to maintain consistency, and get the personnel in to beef up the squad sufficiently to be able to go and do that. If they can do that, I think they could be a serious threat to the top four next season, but I don't think they will be this season. I think they will still quite possibly get a Europa League spot. Like I said, I think West Ham will fall out of fifth, and I do think Everton overall should finish above West Ham. But there's no reason to suggest they should finish above Aston Villa, Tottenham, Chelsea and Leicester at the moment. Never mind the top three. So I expect Everton, they're 8th right now. I expect them to finish approximately 8th at the end of the season. But that shouldn't be seen as too much of a negative thing. Like their team does seem to be going in the right direction. I'm not sure what their financial situation is. They do seem to have put a lot of money into the team in recent years. Their owner, Mushiri, I think his name is, came in and did spend a lot of money on players, has tried to back his managers. He's very much tried to back Ancelotti. So I don't really know if they're going to have enough resources to back the manager again, and to take that next step. So that's going to be interesting to see. But if they do, and like I said, if they keep everyone together, they could be good next year. I personally think they will probably get back to winning form. I don't think Leeds have won 3 games in a row this season. I just think it requires such a level of exertion from them. Everton are another very good team who are hurting after their most recent results and are gonna be coming for a win to bring them back to form. And I think they'll just have a bit more desire and a bit more just a little more fight in them to get the 3 points than Leeds will. Leeds are really, for a promoted team, sitting pretty at the moment in 12th. I don't think they're going to get dragged into the relegation battle. They can beat anyone in the league on their day. And I think I spoke before about how, the form of, win, loss, draw, win, loss, essentially averaging 4 to 5 points every 3 games is great for Leeds. It's mid-table, and I think that they will continue to have that kind of form to the end of the season, and they will finish mid-table, which would be a great return to the Premier League for them. So I do think, after having won those 2 games that they won, I wouldn't be surprised if Everton come to Ellen Road and take all 3 points in this one. But it could just as easily go the other way or be a draw. So who knows? I think it'll be a very, very intriguing game. Like I said, Leeds did win the reverse fixture at Goodison Park. So, Ancelotti against Bielsa. It's gonna be intriguing. Let's see if Ancelotti can get one back. I mentioned Newcastle. They are going to be playing Crystal Palace this midweek. They got their first win in 10 games, beating Everton 2-0 away from home, and I think fairly deservedly so. They worked hard. They restricted Everton to very few chances, and Callum Wilson took both of his goals very, very well. 2 very good finishes, particularly the first goal from a corner swung in. It was a superb header back across the goalkeeper by Wilson, who has been Newcastle's best goal scorer this year. His scoring touch had left him in recent games, but he definitely had it back in this game and took both chances very well. And Newcastle got a very unexpected win. and now they play at home to a Palace team who also won their last game, but overall haven't been in great form. So yeah, I think I watched Newcastle play against Leeds, like I said, last midweek, and I thought that they were trying to change their approach slightly. I thought it looked like Bruce was trying to get them to try and keep the ball a bit more, but they looked very unfamiliar in it. And he had Isaac Hayden playing at right back, and he actually was at fault for both goals. He lost the first one, the ball on the first goal, and Leeds counter-attack from there, and on the second one he was positionally out of place when the ball came over to Jack Harrison, who got the second goal. But that's to be expected if you suddenly ask your team to change what they've been doing, especially in the Premier League. You know, you get found out for any sloppiness. And Hayden has been a very, very good player for Newcastle in recent years. Very hard working midfielder, even fitted into a back three at times well, but playing him at right back seemed like a bit of a stretch too far. So I was very surprised to see them go and beat Everton at Goodison Park. But their fans, I think their fans will feel they're back to square one if they lose this game at home to Palace now this week. I think this is a bit of a must win for Newcastle, or they will easily find themselves in that relegation picture. I mean, they're already there really, but they're just lucky that teams below haven't been picking up like West Brom and Fulham drew with each other this weekend. You know, if either one of those two won, all of a sudden Newcastle look a lot closer to the relegation zone, but they got lucky. It was a draw. I don't think that they had the more possession against Everton in this most recent game. So it was weird that they had that approach against Leeds, but it wasn't the exact same approach against Everton. So I am struggling to see exactly what the new plan is under Bruce. But I think we'll get a good chance to tell against Palace. If they can't keep the ball against Palace, then I don't think anything's really changed for them. And they might just be relying on the odd fluke result, like against Everton. That's what it will look like if they can't beat Palace. So we will see. Palace, like I said, they got their first win in 4 games. Only their second win since December 6th, and there's been a lot of games played in that time. So, not a great run of form for Palace, but they beat Wolves 1-0 at home. With a very good goal from Eberechi Eze, a lovely finish. But just last week they had lost 3-2 at home to West Ham. It was a very poor performance from Palace. There's a lot of problems. Their back four looking very stretched. Cheku Kouyaté, who I think has been decent as centre back for them this season, very much did not look like a centre back in that game against West Ham. He is normally a midfield player. He's only really started back as centre back this season. So getting that clean sheet against Wolves was a big step for Palace, and they'll be looking to continue that into this game against Newcastle. I spoke before about how I just wasn't sure if things had maybe gotten to a point where they're a bit stale under Hodgson for Crystal Palace. I think there's only so long that you can play a restrictive style of football and just trot along and be happy with surviving and finishing mid-table. I do wonder if that effect and that approach is starting to wear off in this Palace team, and that's what led to bad form. But they have got this win. Like I said, their second win in the last 5 games. So maybe they're starting to turn the corner a little bit. But they will also feel that they need to prove that by by going and beating Newcastle. So I feel like both sets of fans going into this game will feel like they have to win to kind of prove that they're going in the right direction, which probably means it has draw written all over it. So so Newcastle Palace play either Tuesday or Wednesday. Elsewhere, Sheffield United are going to meet West Brom, so this will be 20th against 19th, and this really, really will be a absolute must win for Sheffield United. I think arguably more than any other game that any other team has had this season, this game is a must win, because West Brom are 4 points ahead of them in 19th place. So they've got 12 points. Sheffield United have 8. Sheffield United cannot afford even to draw and have that gap remain at 4 points. They need to win. They really do need to win this game. They've come off the back of 2 big performances, obviously getting the win at Old Trafford, and they lost on the weekend 1-0 away to Manchester City, but they did play quite well, Sheffield United. Like they can be proud of their performance. For me, in both games, yes, they scored 2 goals against United, but I talked about how suspect United were defensively. There just seems to be a lack of bite in their attacking play. Like, they're doing very well defensively. They're working extremely hard. Their midfielders are quite good. They get forward, but the forwards, they're lacking. They're lacking a real goal threat up front. And I spoke about that before. How of the teams down the bottom, I felt like Newcastle had the players with the most, the most likely to score. You felt like there was goals in that Newcastle front line, and Wilson has proven my point a bit this weekend with the goals he got. I don't think there's a striker among the other teams in the bottom 6 anyway who is that good and will finish that many chances. There's decent players, of course. I'm not taking away from the likes of Barnes and Wood at Burnley or Mopai at Brighton. But really, after that, I'm struggling to think of anybody who will get near double digits in the Premier League. So that's what I feel is just missing from Sheffield United at the moment. Transfer deadline day is today, and I don't think they've got anyone in. They have a good number of strikers. They have McGoldrick, Burke, Sharp, Brewster, and Musette and Ollie McBurney. So they have 6 forwards there, and they play with 2 every game. They've got 6 strikers there, and none of them really seem capable of getting it to double digits in terms of goal return. So I think that is a problem for them. They're going to have to come up with a solution. But first and foremost, they just need to focus on getting a way to win this game. And if they do that, then they can start looking up the table a little bit more and start trying to catch West. They'll only be 1 point behind West Brom if they win. And they'll be hoping Leicester can do them a favour and beat Fulham to keep Fulham within reaching distance as well. But that would still only be 18th place. They would need Brighton or Burnley or Newcastle to fall into the relegation trap. There's still a good stretch to those teams. They're 13 points off of Brighton at the moment, so they have to win this game. They have to win this game and hope that it starts an upward trend for them. West Brom came off the back of a 2-2 draw with a home to Fulham. That means they've only had 1 win in the 8 games that Big Sam has been in charge. Now that 1 win was away to Wolves, which is their derby match, so it's arguably the game they would have chosen to win. They got that impressive point away at Anfield under Big Sam, but ultimately they definitely lack in the goal scoring department. again, it just doesn't seem like enough of a goal threat from them. I know I'm saying this off the back of a game where they've scored twice, but overall, when I watch West Brom, I just don't really see a serious goal threat. They're well organised defensively. They'll work hard, but I feel like they crumble too easily. They lost 5-0 at home to Leeds, and they've lost 5-0 at home to Manchester City, and in both games they just crumbled as soon as the second goal went in. On both occasions they collapse, and they look like they just know they can't get back into it because they struggle to score. They struggle to score one, never mind getting 2 or 3. So it's a huge uphill task for Big Sam. Personally, I don't think they'll survive, and it'll be interesting to see whether they stick with Big Sam for another go in the Championship. If they can keep the core of that squad together, then it's not bad to go down to the Championship with it and build again. I don't think there'll be many teams coming in to take many of their players. On current form, nobody's really standing out enough. But yeah, this is a game that it might work into their hands, knowing Sheffield United will probably feel the pressure to win it more than they will. But it's not far off a must win for them either, because they are currently 9 points off of safety. So for them and Fulham, they know that they have to start getting some points on the board soon, because neither Brighton nor Burnley on current form look like dropping in to bad enough form that they're going to drop 9-10 points, while Fulham and West Brom gain that amount. Newcastle seemed like their best bet, but of course they just beat Everton, like I discussed this weekend, and if they beat Palace this weekend, they really could start to put the first nail into the coffin of these 3 clubs that are in the relegation zone at the moment. So this really is a relegation 6-pointer, if ever there was one. Sheffield United and West Brom. So huge game. Just outside those bottom 6 are Wolves at the moment. This is the worst season they've had since they came back up. They sit 9 points out of the relegation zone. I don't think they're going to go down, but they definitely are suffering at the moment. They've no win in 8 games. Their last win was when they beat Chelsea 1-0 on December 15th. They brought in Willian Jose from Real Sociedad, who is a good signing. He's been brought in as a loan signing to be basically a very similar type of player to Jimenez, who looks like he's going to miss the whole season with that fractured skull. And really, I think Wolves' main problem, when I watch Wolves, I don't really see a crack in that strong defence that they've built this team around. Their goalkeeper's very strong. They have that back 3 with the wing backs. They brought in new wing backs this year who have both been very impressive in Kiana Hoover and particularly Ryan Ait-Nouri at left wing back. Semedo has come in at right wing back as well, so they've changed the personnel in those positions, but for me they've changed it for the better. Johnny has missed some games at left back this season. He's been injured too, but they have good personnel in those positions. Their midfielders are the same, very strong selection in midfield. Ruben Neves and Moutinho, of course, are arguably, I think it's not arguable. They are Champions League level players, playing for Wolves. And Leander Dendoncker has also been a very strong addition to the team. I thought he was very impressive in that 0-0 draw with Chelsea. But for me, where the struggle is for Wolves is the loss of that Jimenez and Jota partnership up front. I really do think the drop off to not only having to pair someone else with Jimenez, but then losing him for the season through injury, it really is a blow to a huge blow. They just aren't the same threat in attack. Pedro Neto is a good player. He's a different personnel to both Jota and Jimenez. He often looks like he's doing a lot of work on his own. Adama Traore has struggled for goals and assists. He's still putting in, the hard yards and performing decently well, but he has no end product in front of goal this season. Daniel Podence is a player that I'm a big fan of, but he doesn't look like he has a settled position in the team. He's kind of brought in and out. The young lad Fabio Silva is probably too young to be relied upon, starting week in, week out. So it looks like they brought Willian Jose to take the mantle of Jimenez for the rest of the season. He's a very similar style of player, very similar stature. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm sure that they will avoid the relegation scrap. I think they'll be too strong for that, but I'm not sure they can really start climbing the table. I think they might have to settle with a low mid-table finish for this season, which isn't bad. I mean, they've had such impressive seasons coming up from the Championship, that this third season of falling off a bit but not getting dragged into a relegation battle would be fine. It's something that they should be happy to settle with. They address the squad issues in the summer and then go again, and hopefully, fingers crossed, Jimenez can come back from that very serious injury, because he's an excellent player, and you never want to see a player lose their career or start declining because of a serious injury. It was a fractured skull, so let's hope that he recovers well and can come back and be the player he's been for Wolves. And if they can pair him up with someone good enough to take Jota's place, then they might be able to hit those heights again next season. Because I'm sure they're looking at the likes of Villa and Everton, West Ham, Leicester this year and thinking that could have been us. We could have been right in that mix. So yeah, they are hosting Arsenal this midweek. They went to the Emirates and beat Arsenal in the reverse fixture. So, but Arsenal were in bad form at the time. This is a different Arsenal that they're playing now. Arsenal are unbeaten in 7. Ever since they lost 2-1 to Everton just before Christmas. Arteta looks like he's settled upon a pretty settled side for the moment, which is good. He's got players in there who are working hard and they're fighting for their position. They seem to be a bit more solid defensively and are relying a bit more on the counter-attack. There's no problem with that, particularly when you're trying to arrest bad form. So I don't think they're 10th right now, Arsenal. I don't think they're suddenly going to be in the Champions League picture. They won't be this season, but they could find themselves back into Europa League picture. Because quality-wise, they do have more than the teams that they're currently surrounded by in the table. So, I think Leno obviously is back in goal for them, which is good. It seems like Holding and David Luiz have striked up a bit of a partnership, which is what Arsenal needed. They needed a partnership. It almost didn't matter what two players it was, just to get a solid partnership at centre-back to build from. Bayern's at right back and Cedric Suarez has come in at left back because Tierney's been out. He's been very good, Cedric, and to be fair, when Tierney comes back, he walks straight into the team for me at left back. But if I was Arteta, I think I would favour Cedric over Bayern at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see when Tierney comes back what the situation will be there. Thomas Partey and Xhaka formed a bit of a partnership at the base of midfield too, and then Nicolas Pepe has actually come back into a bit of form. He is a very talented player. I think they did probably pay over the odds for him, but he is a very talented player, Pepe, and he's been showing that in recent games. Bukayo Saka missed the Manchester United game, but he's arguably been their best attacker this year. he's typically playing on the right hand side at the moment. On the left hand side, I believe, while Pepe typically plays on the right. And Emile Smith-Rowe has come in and looked very impressive as a number 10. He's definitely a very strong talent. He can carry the ball so well. He's one of those players kind of similar to Jack Grealish, where he doesn't have incredible pace, but he's able to glide past players and never looks like he's going to lose the ball. And he creates chances with that ability. So he's been a joy to watch. But Martin Odegaard has obviously come in on loan from Real Madrid, so I expect to see Odegaard probably start ahead of Smith-Rowe going forward. I do think that's not just a loan move. Like, Arsenal probably will look to make that permanent if they can. It seems like that kind of move, because it seems like Odegaard definitely wants out of Real Madrid, and rightly so, because they're not really using him. And it's time he just moved on and got his career back on track. So yeah, interesting to see how that goes down. And then, of course, Lacazette has been playing up front, and it's interesting to see. He's led the line well in front of those young players. He's kind of been the old head who's leading the line and just focusing on being a bit more of a bully up there than necessarily just a goal scorer, which is good. I think Arsenal need someone to sacrifice themselves in that way. And it looks like Lacazette is kind of sacrificing his regular game to lead the line and give these younger players a platform to play with at the moment, and it's working for them. I think Aubameyang will come back into the team for this game against Wolves, so it's interesting to see if he starts instead of Lacazette or if he starts on the left hand side again. I think it's probably smarter to reintroduce him on the left and try and rely on their counter-attack. I think both teams would be relying on the counter-attack, so this could easily be a boring 0-0 draw. But that wouldn't be the worst result at the moment for either team. So, yeah, I think Arsenal are steadily but slowly improving. And I said before that Arteta needs time, and he still will need time. There's a lot of problems with that squad that need fixing. So, it's definitely not something that he can address overnight. And he's been there a year now, but he's going to need, from me, at least another year to sort out most of the problems in that Arsenal squad. It needs to be a long-term rebuild with him there. And I do think he has shown the potential that he can make it work if he can get the squad that he wants. So, yeah, I think they just need to keep moving along steadily as they have been. I think if he can avoid another serious rough patch like they were just in before this 7-game unbeaten run, I don't think it's going to get that bad again for him, Arteta. If it did, that might be the end of him, but I don't think it will. I think he's gotten through the worst of it and can kick on and continue the rebuild from here. If Arsenal back him properly, that is. Spoke about Liverpool and their performance away to Spurs, which I thought was very impressive, and then going away to West Ham this Sunday and also putting in another very impressive performance. It looked like West Ham might do enough for a draw, but they couldn't really test that Liverpool back line, which was again makeshift, but looked quite comfortable. I thought Nat Phillips defended very solidly. He can deal with physical challenges very well, and Jordan Henderson is looking very calm and assured at centre back, which shows how much of a professional he is. I think they've gotten their crossing to be very effective again from their fullbacks, I should say, Robertson and Trent, and obviously Mohamed Salah. I said Mane looked back in form against Spurs. Salah looked back in form very much against West Ham. So it looks like their forwards are starting to enjoy themselves again. I thought like tactically Liverpool have just looked very solid defensively of late. even given the makeshift back line, they're not letting anything in behind them. I talked about how Son didn't really get a sniff besides that offside goal in behind the Liverpool back line, and Antonio didn't really get a sniff in this game either in behind the back line. They're managing it very, very well. And I think that's not just to do with the back line, it's to do with the rest of the team. I noticed they're happier to sit in a deeper block at times, but then when the opposition start to pass it back, maybe to go around the block, they start to elongate that block, so they don't just move up as a team, they kind of stretch their block and make it thinner and invite passes therefore into the wide channels, where they then very aggressively press. They set a wide pressing trap, which mostly comes from the fullbacks, the midfield and the wingers, which is therefore putting a lot of defensive responsibility on them, and maybe alleviates more pressure off the back line to constantly shift appropriately. They can kind of be a bit more steady in their positioning while the rest of the team changes its distances. I think it's working for them. I think that's a clever way to alleviate pressure from a makeshift backline, particularly when you're missing so many key personnel. So very clever, and they got 2 wins in a row, and they will be expecting to continue that run at home to Brighton. Having said that, Brighton have been very, very impressive of late. I talked about how I almost immediately regretted putting them in my my teams to get relegated. They have just been hovering in 17th for a long time, Brighton, but for me they're a lot stronger than Fulham and West Brom. They play with an authority of a top 10 team, Brighton. I said that in the teams in the bottom half, arguably that other than Leeds, they keep the ball the best out of all those teams, and I think I'm fair in saying that. I think, like I said, against Spurs in the weekend, they had the better of the ball. I don't know the exact possession stats, but they were definitely the dominant team overall and made the more chances, the more good chances, and really just go about the game. Like they played Manchester City recently as well. The Etihad hadn't lost 1-0, but they had a lot of the ball, and much more than you'd expect to see against a Manchester City team. And Manchester City felt, that they had to drop back and kind of scrape that 1-0 win, and it just felt Brighton just lacked a bit of bite as well up front, like I mentioned with Sheffield United. Just lacked that edge up front to really make the possession count for more. But they made a count against Spurs. They've got 3 clean sheets in their last 3 games, so 3 clean sheets in a row. They went to Ellen Road and beat Leeds 1-0. Like I said, just beaten Spurs, and they had a 0-0 draw in between that with Fulham, who were obviously just below them in the league, which kept them at bay. But I think this is going to be very interesting tactically. Liverpool are going to have to be tested a little bit defensively again. I think if they press Brighton, they're gonna have their work cut out for them, because Brighton can keep the ball against a team that presses them. And who knows? I think their forwards will be more effective if there is space to get in behind Liverpool backline. So do Liverpool want to push up entirely into Brighton's half? Because with Mopé and Trossard and Connolly, who's back now, they do have some serious pace up front there, Brighton. So I think this is going to be a very intriguing game. I do think this is it could easily just be a 3-0 to Liverpool, and people say, yeah, that's what you expect. But for me, this could be a very intriguing game, a very, very intriguing game, and I'm very interested to see what the way Graham Potter is going to set up his Brighton side against this Liverpool team at the moment. So yeah, that one I think is on Wednesday, I believe. Liverpool at home to Brighton should be a good game. Elsewhere, Burnley are going to be hosting Manchester City this week. Burnley coming off the back of a 2-0 loss away to Chelsea, like I spoke about before. Tuchel's first win with Chelsea. It was their loss after winning 2 games, Burnley, when they beat Liverpool at Anfield, that infamous game now. And they beat Villa 3-2 at home recently in a very, very open back and forth end-to-end game. But this game against Manchester City concludes a run against top teams for Burnley. They've played a lot of top teams of late. They had a trip to Old Trafford, they hosted United at home, which they lost 1-0. They went to the London Stadium and lost 1-0 to West Ham, a very informed West Ham team. They then went to Anfield and beat Liverpool. They beat Aston Villa, who obviously have been very informed this season, at home. And then they went to Stamford Bridge and lost to Chelsea. So 5 games in a row against very top teams. All those teams in the top 7, except for Aston Villa, who are 9th at the moment but have a couple of games in hand. And now they host the team in first, Manchester City. So I think they'll be happy just to get this run over Burnley. They can, I think, have a bit of a free hit approach to this Man City game. I think if you'd given them 6 points from those 5 games, would they definitely have taken it? I don't know, but I think it's not bad for a team that's 16th to face 6 games in a row against teams from the top half. It's not a bad return at all. So I think they can maybe approach this Manchester City game with a bit of a free hit, which can go one of 2 ways. When teams approach a game in that way, either they can play very well because they don't feel pressure, or they can concede an early goal and think, okay, just go through the motions, see it out, lose 2 or 3-0. Manchester City do seem to have Burnley's number, particularly at Turf Moor. They typically win when they go up there, so this could very easily be another procession for Manchester City, but I hope there's enough about Burnley for them to want to do what they did to Liverpool recently. They definitely have it in them. Manchester City, on the other hand, are coming off the back of 8 wins in a row, looking to make it 9 in this game. And like I said, I have a very good record against Burnley. But some of those wins have been, like I said, 1-0 over Sheffield United and 1-0 over Brighton, have been very tight, and they're not scoring goals for fun. They are in the odd game. They beat West Brom 5-0 recently, but that Villa game as well was another very tight one. Like they're not all going as smoothly as the scorelines would suggest for Manchester City, but they have been very strong defensively. They're keeping a lot of clean sheets in those games. And the loss of Kevin De Bruyne for a while through injury doesn't seem to have really hurt them. Gundogan's in superb form. Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva have come back into some excellent form in that stretch of games too. So I do fully expect a Manchester City win. However, do I expect to see them win 9, 10, 11, 12 games in a row? It's always possible they could, but I don't think so this season. I don't think they have it in them, and I think in those 8 games there's been enough chinks in their armour to suggest that they're going to drop points again soon. I say that obviously as a hopeful Manchester United fan as well, but I do think that just how the season has gone, and even some of the recent performances, that they are due to drop points. Now, that's much more likely to be on the weekend when they play Liverpool. But who knows, this Burnley team, I always fear as a United fan when let's say we're going away to Burnley and they say, we've won here the last 5 games in a row or something like that. They say it with such an air of, so they're heavy favourites here, and that's always when I shake my head and think, oh, crap. Siri, shut up. That's always when I think, oh crap, we're that means they're going to win this one, doesn't it? So hopefully that can be the case for Burnley against Manchester City, but we will see. I think that one is on Tuesday as well. Aston Villa are hosting West Ham, which is going to be a very good game. Two of the most informed teams this season, not particularly of recent games, but definitely this season. Aston Villa currently sit 3 points behind West Ham, but they've got 2 games in hand on them. So it just shows how good Villa have been this year, because West Ham currently sit in 5th, and Villa could be 3 points clear of them if they won 2 games in hand. So, and maybe even 9 if they won this game. So, I think Villa they've lost 3 of their last 5 games, but the games they lost were Manchester United, Manchester City, and then Burnley in that open game that they lost 3-2. It was very much back and forth, but they have beaten Newcastle. They beat Southampton on the weekend. I think they were very fortunate to beat Southampton on the weekend. I went into that reasoning why earlier, but yeah, I think that I would say that they have been better overall than you would have to say every team from West Ham down. That's West Ham, Spurs, Chelsea and Everton, because of those games in hand they have. Now, having said that, Everton have also played the same amount of games as Villa and they sit a point ahead, so it seems very unfair for me to suggest that Villa have been better than them. But for me, they just look a more complete side when I watch them, Aston Villa. They seem to know exactly what's expected of them and they carry out those instructions superbly well. They are very, very well coached. I wonder how much that has to do with Craig Shakespeare being on the coaching staff now. He was obviously at the Leicester team that won the league. I think I really do think he is a top coach, and it's interesting to see that Villa, the difference in Villa since he's come in. That's not to take anything away from their manager Dean Smith. I think he's a superb manager. Maybe it is his tactical idea and instruction that is coming across, but I see such a difference in them, Villa, from last season to this season. I don't know exactly when Craig Shakespeare came in. I believe it was in the summer, or at least it was after lockdown. I don't know that for sure, but I think he is a superb coach, and I think you can see the difference in Aston Villa since he's come in. And every time I watch Villa, I'm very impressed by just how unified they seem between attack and defence, and they just seem so well organised, and they seem to know exactly what they're doing in attack, and it makes them a very strong outfit. There's a reason they don't have those points that they have by fluke. Whereas I look at Everton and think that they have that quality to get them points at times, and there's some games that they get over the line due to their added quality. That's not to take anything away from them. I just think that I see more organisation and purpose in Villa's play, and I do think even they are stronger than West Ham as well. They have more going forward. They have a bit more fluidity to their attack than West Ham do. So I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Villa get back to winning ways again with this one. I think West Ham are due a drop off. They have been in incredible form. They won those 4 games in a row right before losing to Liverpool. So that's not to take anything away from them. That loss to Liverpool was their first loss in 7 games, West Ham. They've gotten Jesse Lingard in this January transfer window on loan. But personally, I feel as well as they've done, and I've gave David Moyes a lot of praise last time I spoke, I do think they probably are due a drop off. I think they are a little bit out of position, and that they will drop back to closer to mid-table. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But I do think overall, if Villa play well, they will be better than this West Ham side. Although it should still be tight. Villa also have 2 games in hand on Leicester in 4th and are only 7 points behind them. So it's a lot to ask for them to just go ahead and win these games in hand. But I think they still have it in them. It's going to be very hard too for them to keep it up all season. I spoke about how Everton, I wasn't convinced of their strength and depth. I don't think Villa's strength and depth is much better than Everton's. It is good. Like, they do have a decent squad there, Villa. It certainly is big enough for a Premier League side that's expected to, be fighting relegation at the moment. But if they had any injuries to any of the 3 of John McGinn, Jack Grealish and Ollie Watkins up front, even Matty Cash at right back has been a fantastic addition. If any of them were to be out for a stretch with injury or just fall off due to fatigue, because they are playing a lot of football this season, I do think that would damage Villa a lot. So it's interesting to see if they can keep this form up. I do think once it starts to go a bit wrong, that might see them curl off. But for me, I've just been so impressed with the way they play and the way they're organised that it wouldn't really surprise me to see them finish 5th, 6th, 7th. Probably would surprise me to see them finish in the top 4, definitely. I just think there's too many teams with higher quality in the picture. But they have been playing so well that I wouldn't be surprised to see them get a Europa League spot this season. But the question is, can they keep it up? Can the squad keep up with the demands? I spoke about Leicester. They are going to be going to Fulham, to Craven Cottage. Fulham actually beat Leicester in the reverse fixture at the King Power Stadium. But this is a Fulham side with no win in 10 games. Now, having said that, they have 7 draws in those 10 games, so they're not losing a lot, Fulham. They are going toe-to-toe with a lot of teams in the league and coming out evenly. And even those games that they lost were all very narrow defeats by 1 goal to United, by 1 goal to Chelsea, and by a 2-0 defeat to Manchester City. In another game that sounds more comfortable for City than it was in reality. But there is something to be said for it. It's a weird way to kind of hand out praise in that they haven't won a game in 10, but 7 draws and 3 losses to 3 of the top teams in the country. There is some kind of consistency there. There is some kind of unity and a plan that is working somewhat with the team. They are clearly buying into what they're trying to do. So you do have to give credit for turning out consistent performances over those 10 games. They lost by the odd goal to United and by 2-0 to City, but even in that Chelsea game, I thought they could easily have gotten a point if it wasn't for having to play the whole second half down to 10 men. But up until that point, they looked very much in the game. They arguably were the better team. And Chelsea, even being 11 against 10, took Chelsea until the last 10 minutes of the game to get that winner. So, there is something working there at Fulham. I personally, I said at the start that they would get relegated because I just didn't think they had the quality, and I still feel that way. I was a big fan of Scott Parker basically ripping up that back line and reintroducing new personnel, because the likes of Odoi and Tim Ream are just not Premier League standard. And I couldn't believe that they were going to go again with those players, given what happened last time they were up. So they needed to change that, and they have a much better and more solid and more settled back line now. That back 3 of Anderson, Olaena and Adebayo I might have mispronounced that. I apologise if I did. Is a lot more solid, a lot more youthful, much better on the ball, better physically, more athletic. So it's I think there's a lot to like about watching Fulham, but they do, again, I said it about Sheffield United, I said it about West Brom, I said it about Wolves and Brighton. They lack that bite up front. They lack that real edge and that person you can rely on to score goals. I've been impressed with Ademola Lookman. He scored against Manchester United, a very good goal. He's often the most dangerous of their forward players. He's got a lot of talent. He's still quite young. You can't rely on a player like that to get you double digits. I don't think Caballero is going to be that player. Mitrovic isn't in favour. He doesn't really start for Fulham. So I don't really know where these goals are going to come from for them. And therefore I just can't see them clawing their way out of that bottom three. But if they can keep the bulk of this squad together and keep Scott Parker there, they could rebuild in the Championship and come back much stronger. And if they can do that and add the right personnel, particularly in attack, they could come back up 2 seasons from now with a much better chance of re-establishing themselves in the league. But it's going to take a lot of planning and proper investment. But yeah, so they host Leicester. Leicester, who are currently 4th. Like I said, on course for 76 points if they can keep this average up throughout the rest of the season. But that is a big ask. They fell off last season when they were in 4th for so long and really fell off a cliff towards the end of the season. And there's a danger of it happening again just because they don't have the biggest squad. They do have a good squad. Vardy's out for a little while with injury, and it'd be interesting to see if they did lose someone else big due to injury, what that would do to them. Like I said, overall I thought they just looked like they couldn't keep up with Leeds physically in the game on the weekend, and they've had some weird losses, some weird results at home. This game is away from home. It's at Craven Cottage, so maybe it's the perfect game for them to get back on track. Fulham do like to keep the ball and Leicester like to counter attack, so really Fulham might play right into their hands. But like I said, Fulham have been proven difficult to beat over this last 10 games, even though they haven't won. So it's going to be intriguing to see, do Fulham finally crack that, or do they succumb to one of the bigger teams showing up and needing to prove a point, because Leicester will feel that they need to get back to winning ways, having not lost their last two, or not won their last two. So yeah, another intriguing battle there. So there's something very intriguing about every Premier League game if you look close enough. But yeah, big round of fixtures this midweek, and then some very big games coming up this weekend, including, like I mentioned, Liverpool and Manchester City, which is going to be obviously a huge game. But Aston Villa will be playing Arsenal as well. Manchester United will be playing Everton. Burnley will play Brighton, which will be another big relegation fixture. Wolves are going to play Leicester, which in couple of recent seasons has always been a superb game to watch. But Wolves obviously have to kick up their attacking game to compete with Leicester at the moment. And Sheffield United are going to play against Chelsea. That's all happening this weekend. So they have to beat West Brom, and then they got to turn their sights on Chelsea, or it could be game over for them in terms of the relegation battle, if it's not already. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I've spoken for almost 2 hours. My voice is clearly going, so time to wrap it up. Thank you very much for watching. If you have, I really do appreciate it. So if you want to leave a comment below on anything you agree with, disagree. Feel free. Cheers.